Welcome to MissouriNet.com. I'm Bill Pollock with our Google Hangout, Shane Bailey from SECSportsRoundtable.com with us. Back after a couple weeks, we're going to talk about the SEC East. Shane is a Kentucky fan, but he loves covering the SEC. Shane, the first thing I want to bring up is, listen, Kentucky won this game. That play clock got down to 0, in my opinion, before the ball was snapped.
It did get down to 0, but as the SEC so eloquently put it, the back judge still has to be able to look at the clock and then take his eyes from the clock to see if the ball's been snapped. So there is a slight delay there for that to happen. But that would have only set up 4th and goal from the 12. It wouldn't have turned the ball over. So they still would have had a chance to score a touchdown from 12 yards out. So I wouldn't necessarily say we won the game because of that. Kentucky had opportunities to win that game well before that. A couple of, as well as Tolles played, there were a couple of bad passes and a couple of bad bounces. I mean, a couple of receivers, it hit them right there in the numbers, and it bounced right to a Florida player that caused a couple key turnovers. So Kentucky had their chances. I wouldn't necessarily say that was the only reason we lost that game.
Shane, I see a lot of, and for our Mizzou fans that are watching this, I think they'll be able to relate to this when you talk about Kentucky fans and where they're at right now. I think Mizzou fans can relate for this alone. When Gary Pinkel first got here, his first couple of years, and even Larry Smith before that, Mizzou would get so close to beating those top teams, so close to beat Oklahoma, so close to beating Nebraska in those Big 12 days, and they just couldn't get over the hump. And that's kind of where I see the direction of the Kentucky Wildcats right now. They've got an exciting coach. Things are starting to look like they're going in the right direction. You got a chance to get this big win, but you're just not quite there yet. And I think Mizzou fans can kind of relate with that.
Yeah, it was devastating to some degree, but realistically that wasn't a game we were supposed to win. So when it's all said and done, in the moment I was let down, but you knew going in that was going to be a tough place to play. Florida was, and they're proving it. They're supposed to be a much more improved team now that they're healthy. That was the knock on them last year, is that they were just so banged up and so injured. So for Kentucky to have, if Florida is as high as they supposedly are now, and Kentucky to take them to 3 overtimes and really have opportunities to win that game in the Swamp, we've got a lot to be encouraged for as Kentucky fans right now.
Absolutely. And as far as Florida Gator fans, listen, in terms of the future of Will Muschamp, I'm going to share this picture. Can you see that on your screen there, Shane?
I'm not seeing it.
You're not seeing
there
it.
I am, yeah.
Okay. This is the face. This is the look of Will Muschamp when his team is losing 27-20. That's one of them. There's another one. That's the look on his face. To me, Shane, that's not a leader. That's not a leader at all. What I want to see from a coach is I want to see a Nick Saban. I want to see when Auburn is running a ball back 108 yards. I want to see Nick Saban just kind of putting his arms up and walking with his head held high. That's a coach. That's a leader. I don't want... If I'm at a company and I find out that our stock just took a 10% hit or a 15% hit, I don't want to look at the CEO of the company and see this face. I don't want to see that. I don't want to. I mean, that's the leader. I don't want the fire chief when I hear that there's a 40-story building that's on fire. I don't want to look at the fire chief and see that face. That's panic, Shane. That's panic look on that face. That to me is not a head football coach. Great coordinator, a great defensive mind, but that is not the face of a head coach. And he looked rattled and sweaty and panicked. That's my opinion. Your thoughts?
You saw some of the old Muschamp. I mean, last year he was much calmer than he has in the past, but there were a couple of scenes on that sideline where you thought, he's close to a stroke. That's the old Muschamp that you saw, that fire and anger and outrage that he had, and he had some of those moments on the field. But that team really stood up and played for him. I saw those same scenes live and had some of those same thoughts. It's like, wow, what a face he's got right there. And I love watching him on the sidelines because he's so animated when the team's playing. But he's got that team in the right direction. The East is. You said we're going to talk a little bit about the East, and this is a great segue is the East is wide open right now. You talk about Georgia, who I was high on them from the beginning of the season. They were my pick to win the East, and the way Pruitt's defense allowed South Carolina to have success running the ball, as well as have success passing those mid-level passes, all of a sudden Georgia was beatable. Their kicker, who I think at one point through the game had hit 20 in a row, he missed 2 makeable field goals that could have been the difference in this ball game. So as many chances as Georgia had, and as bad as South Carolina played against Texas A&M in week 1, for them to come back and beat East Carolina, who then turns around and, was it Ohio State that they beat?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
They turned around and beat somebody they shouldn't have. So all of a sudden, what's going on in the East? So now you have Florida much improved, but you had Kentucky take them to triple overtime. You had Tennessee go out to Oklahoma and for a quarter and a half look, halfway like they could stand with it. But if you watch that game, I thought Oklahoma never was out of control, but the score at times was much closer. They were a pick 6, Oklahoma, where Tennessee was right down on the goal line from bringing it to a one-score game. And now all of a sudden it's a 14-point swing. But Oklahoma never was, I don't think, ever out of control of that game. But Tennessee played them pretty well. You've got Missouri, your team out there in the East, that they're sneaky. I mean, we still don't know who Missouri is because of who they've played. They went to Toledo, and for all indications, Toledo's a pretty good MAC team, and it's a home game for them. So you win a good road game, but you still don't know what you have in Missouri, and they've got a couple of good tests coming up. I think they've got three good tests coming up in the East. They get Georgia, South Carolina, and somebody else. I don't have their schedule pulled up in front of me right now.
Yeah, the first three games are at South Carolina, at home against Georgia, and then at Florida.
So everybody that we're considering up in the East right now, it's going to be Missouri has a chance to figure this all out right there in the middle of the season, and then they get Arkansas at the end of the season, their West opponent. Look what they did to Texas Tech running that ball. That's scary what Arkansas is able to do with Bellamy getting that run game to work. Now, can he make it work in the SEC? That's yet to be determined. But the East is all up in shambles except for Vanderbilt. We know that they've all of a sudden supplanted themselves as a program that needs to do some rebuilding again with Derek Mason at the helm.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. When we talked a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about your picks and how we saw the SEC, I think both of us, and I think a lot of people said, okay, you can flip a coin, or it's up in the air as far as South Carolina, Georgia, Mizzou, Florida, and you kind of took the rest of the teams and just threw them to the side. After watching the last couple of weeks now, you know what? You better be paying attention to Kentucky, and you better be paying attention to Tennessee, because, boy, wouldn't you hate to be one of those top 4 teams to lose out on the SEC East because you overlooked a Kentucky or a Tennessee.
Well, in South Carolina, if you look at them as far as a top-tier team, I don't think Tennessee is going to be able to sneak up on them this year. That happened last year.
Right.
And that's just something else that the East has going for it as far as if you are a Florida, if you're Georgia, South Carolina, Missouri. Tennessee snuck up on somebody last year, and that's South Carolina. They beat them. They shouldn't have beat them. So they're going to be prepared to know that Tennessee is only better this year than they were last year. So they're going to be a little more prepared for Tennessee and take them a little more seriously than they did, I think, last year. But if you can stop Tennessee's run game, because they don't have one, and Worley's still somewhat inconsistent, the defense is good on Tennessee. They've gotten really improved, but they still have some holes and some problems on that offense side. So if you can stop the offense and score a couple times, as Oklahoma did, now all of a sudden you've got a real opportunity to beat Tennessee no matter who you are in the East, or if you're Alabama in the West, and I forgot who else they have in the West this year. So Tennessee, even though they are much improved, I don't think they can sneak up on anybody. And this was Kentucky's wake-up call for everybody. It's going to be hard for Kentucky to sneak up on somebody now, but they always play South Carolina tough. They always play Georgia tough, and they always lose to Florida. So there's some obstacles in the road for Kentucky, but it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited over the next couple of weeks with Missouri's matchups, because as little as I know about Missouri, I'm really going to be able to see what they have and are they a legitimate contender for the East, because you're going to know that in the next 3 weeks.
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's the good and the bad part about it. The good part about it is if they do well, if Mizzou does well and they win 2 out of 3, or they happen to win all 3, then you're thinking, hey, you know what? We got a chance to coast and get in there. But that's the problem, though, is there's no coasting because there's a lot of tough teams on the.
Welcome to the SEC.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of those, one of those teams that can sneak up and catch you. So, but here's the other thing: by Halloween, they could be out of it, and this season could be, you're playing for a mid-level bowl game. So there's some good and bad behind it. But yeah, I think with Missouri and what you're seeing with some of these teams is, you can't look at the first week. I think you've got to throw out the South Carolina loss to Texas A&M, and I think the way that they played against Georgia just shows that it's going to take a little time to get up and running, but it's a full season, and people were writing off Steve Spurrier and the Gamecocks after game 1, and that's not the case. You can't do that.
Yeah, but
people would know that in the SEC. People that are follow this, you got to know it's not over until the end, the last second, the last game.
And you look at some of the matchups, that's right. But the way that Texas A&M came in there, and Kenny Hill, I'm not going to give him his new nickname that he likes, the way he came in and performed, and the way A&M's offensive line gave him so much time to make those passes, it was unbelievable the way they dissected a South Carolina defense that we thought was going to be better than it is. So we still have issues as far as South Carolina, what we're going to see from them, but it is wide open. A lot's going to be determined over these next 3 weeks, and your Missouri Tigers are the ones that are going to help determine that for everybody.
Yeah, no doubt. Interesting 2-3 weeks coming up here. So Shane Bailey from SECSportsRoundtable.com. Thanks for your time. Good insight. And let's see, one more must champ face here. See, to me, that's panic. That's panic. It's one thing to be hyped up, but that, to me, boy, I saw him and thought, oh man, he knows if he loses this game, he's in trouble.
Yeah, because he's got Alabama this week.
Yeah, I know.
And so all of a sudden you're going to start with 2 big losses in the SEC. Behind the 8 ball, but now he's got an opportunity. I mean, if Missouri can beat a Georgia or a South Carolina, and even if they lose to Missouri, now all of a sudden it's a 1-loss Florida program in the East, and it all becomes crazy because now you're getting a couple teams with 2 losses. So that's real likely is that somebody's going to get through attrition is going to be on the outside looking in after this next 3 weeks.
I knew it was going to be fun being in the SEC. I didn't think it was going to be this much fun, though. This is crazy. This is great football here in Missouri, and we're glad to be a part of the SEC, no doubt about it. Shane, thanks a lot for your time, and we'll catch up with you again in a couple of weeks.
Sounds great. Thanks, Bill.
All right, thanks for checking us out here at MissouriNet.com.